And we won't share this publicly. This will be for team members that missed it, that need. It's not going to be posted on Facebook or YouTube or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's 7:05.
Okay.
We'll just get started. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Welcome, Salam.
I know most of the people on here, I think.
Assalamualaikum.
Oh, I know everybody on here.
So I invited two of my friends, Akila and Annie.
Nice.
So they are entrepreneurs as well.
That's amazing. So welcome to our very first Her Leadership Toolbox training. We did have some boss women trainings before this pandemic showed up. So this is along those same lines, but it's specifically for Muslim women who are in leadership positions or who are leading. Even some women lead everywhere, right? They lead in their families, they lead in the community in all kinds of different ways. And what we want to do with this series is really provide some skills that can help in those leadership roles that you're already in. That's the purpose of this Her Leadership Toolbox series. And this series is part of a bigger program that we are calling Women's Action Network. And Women's Action Network, we actually started a couple of years ago, where we started connecting women who are leaders within our Muslim community. We started connecting them and just seeing what their needs are and how we can support them and what trainings could they use, and just how can we build the power of women within our community. So we've been working developing this program that will have monthly trainings. The trainings will be these skill building, and also some weekends we're going to have actually bigger workshops about a specific issue. So the issues will be anything from like how to conduct nikahs and marriages, like what do you need to know as somebody who is getting your daughter married, like what are the do's and don'ts, and as women who are helping other women, what do you advise them with when it comes to marriage, or racism, we're doing things. So we have lots of different things lined up, and I'm working on a lot of these with some volunteers, and we have Bua here as one of the co-hosts. So she is one of the volunteers with the Women's Action Network. Sada also helps us out. And if any of you would like to help coordinate these trainings and just have some ideas and want to work on this, just let me know. And if you have any questions about these upcoming trainings, you can also email Sowa. Sowa will put her email address in the chat. And I'm going to just hand it over to Arshina, because we don't have too much time, and Arshina is a member of our Boss Women team, and she's been helping us, throughout these last few years. So really grateful that you're here, Arshina. Take it away.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thanks for joining, on this Tuesday night. I know we're all busy working women, in some cases parents, and it's not easy to give up an hour and a half of your time to listen to me talk about something like strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is something that I have to do in my job on a regular basis. So I started in human resources over 20 years ago, and I've been doing it, I can't believe, for almost 22 years now. I've always worked in the corporate environment, and the job I have now is being an HR leader for a hotel company. So the company I work for now, we own hotels throughout the US, and we're a small corporate office. A lot of people think we manage all these hotels we own, and thankfully we don't, because I think I would pull my hair out if I had to hire every single employee. But part of my job, as I mentioned, is understanding what the strategy of the company is and how I can leverage the tools and resources I have in that company to get me to do the job I need to. So, thank you so much for being part of this journey with me and for giving up your time to spend time with me. And the fact that you're here on this call, you've already committed, right? It shows you're committed to building yourself as a leader, building yourself as an entrepreneur, and developing yourself. People who don't join calls, they might be busy, they may have other things going on, but once you make that commitment to attend a session, whether it be 2 hours, whether it be a day, you're already a step ahead. So pat yourself on the back for that. Good job. And throughout the session, I tend to not want to always be the one talking. I will ask for, insight from you as individuals and, what you think certain things are. So please feel free to participate. Don't feel shy. Over the 20 years, I can tell you confidently, I've been in recruiting, I've been in terminations, I've been in leaders meetings with executives on a regular basis. And I can tell you the things that women in general, and I think it's even harder for Muslim women because a lot of us come from very diverse backgrounds. A lot of us do cover. So I feel that alone is a barrier for some of us. Being on those meetings, the things that I have found that have limited women have been not being able to think strategically, not being able to communicate their vision and their self-awareness and being confident. And one of the things I started with last year when I did, well, year before last, when we did this session was confidence and self-awareness, which I think it starts with each person. And confidence is key in order to build these strategic thinking tools that we're going to talk about today. If you're not confident in yourself, then it's going to show. And unfortunately, other people will see that. So just remember that confidence is really important, which I'm sure all of you on this call have an idea about what confidence entails and how you appear in front of others. Some people are more self-aware than others. Others are not. Unfortunately, I work in a company, we have a lot of VP women, and a lot of them are not self-aware of how they come across. And a lot of times I find myself pulling them aside and saying, hey, you came across X, Y, and Z away when you were in this meeting. And a self-aware woman will understand what I'm trying to say and will also take that constructive criticism to heart and try to fix it. So this is not about confidence today, but I just want you to know those are 3 things that are important strategic thinking, self-awareness, communication, and confidence. Okay, so I don't know all of your backgrounds, and necessarily I don't understand why, I don't know essentially why all these individuals are joining today. It could be because you want to do it for your job. It could be your just own personal knowledge. It could be South is telling you to join. Whatever the reason, I just want to hear from a few of you what you hope to gain. If anyone wants to interject.
Did you ask? I missed it because I was taking off my headset at the same time.
Hold on, I'm muted. I had asked if any of you can just give me an idea about what you hope to gain from this session.
Oh, okay, I'll go. So what I hope to gain from this session is to increase my goal setting skills because of course I use the SMART goal factor, and this is what I do, but I just feel like I want to learn more to master goal setting and to be more of a strategic planner. Because sometimes I feel like when I write everything down, I create that strategy, but sometimes I do feel like I'm all over the place. So that's why I joined, is because my business is expanding, getting ready to grow, and I really want to be ready to handle that growth, because I do know that if you're not ready to handle it, that could be a potential problem. So, alhamdulillah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to add? Okay, so I do tend to talk fast. So if you need me to slow down, please go ahead and tell me to slow down. That's no problem at all. That's one of my constructive feedbacks that I work on. Slow down, Rashina. You think as fast as you talk. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and well, I'm not going to show you my video because I don't want you to see me the whole time. Plus, I'll be looking at my notes. So feel free to stop me along the way, as I mentioned, if I go too fast or if you have any questions. One thing to keep in mind is strategic thinking is a huge topic. It's not a topic that can essentially be covered in an hour and a half and goal setting. It's like a 2 or 3 day workshop, right? So I try to put together the bits and pieces based on my own knowledge, based on sessions I've been to, based on leadership coaching I've done, that I think are key parts that everyone should be aware of when understanding what strategic thinking is and what it can mean to you. So a lot of it is, unfortunately, with strategic thinking, you can have a framework that you walk away with from listening to a session like this, but the problem is it comes from experience, right? You know, Rafia mentioned that she writes all these things down. Unfortunately, when you write all these things down, you do end up saying to yourself, I'm getting overwhelmed. I'm not sure where I should start. Does this even make sense? But the fact that you wrote it down is a great start. So good for that. All right. So let's jump into it. All right, what is strategy? So there's a broad definition of strategy. Strategy, essentially, at the end of the day, there is one main component of it, right? The main components of it is a plan to achieve your goals. Now, when you think of goals, the things that most people think about is short-term goals. But the difference between goals and strategy is strategy tends to be more long-term, and they tend to be about thinking about the future. So what is the big picture? And that's where a lot of people run into issues. They have a hard time thinking about the big picture and what the future holds. Yes, we don't all have crystal balls, we know this, but if you can be a strategic thinker, you'll be able to develop the framework in understanding how you can think about the future more. It doesn't involve one person, unfortunately. When it comes to strategic thinking, you have resources that are available to you, whether it be a coworker, whether it be a family member. So you have to use those resources as well to help you think about the future. Strategy is also important when it comes to knowing that you have to rely on other people a lot of times to come up with that strategy. So strategy exists at all levels, multiple levels. That's one thing I mentioned recently. When we think about strategy, if you're going to rely on yourself, you're going to pigeonhole yourself. You've heard of the term pigeonhole, right? Where you're only focusing on one thing. You're going to end up failing if you're not going to focus on the big picture and use those resources available to you at all levels. Now, when you're working in a corporate environment, it's easy to see what those levels are. For me, the levels are my boss, who's the president, right? I know he's the boss of the company. He's a great resource for me, and I have to think about the strategy with him. It's not just what I think the strategy is. It comes from the CEO, it comes from the president, it comes from the CFO. All those integral parts, and it's not just top to the bottom, it's also bottom up. So even individuals below my position can help advance that strategy of the organization. So you have to have that one main goal in mind and get other levels of your company or your group or whoever it may be that's going to help you with that strategy. So ultimately, what strategies are good for, it's helping people work together, right? So that's one of the reasons strategy is important. It's helping everyone see how their work is connected. You know, when we're just relying on one person, we may not see that. It helps us make choices as conditions change. If you have a narrow view of what the world looks like, you may not see things around you that will affect the strategy. It helps you evaluate effectiveness, and it also helps you to learn, and it helps you to marshal the resources you need in order to be effective. And as conditions change, your plan is going to evolve. No strategy ever really stays the same 100% of the time. The main strategy may, but you have subsets that will change over time. And if your plan and your goals don't change with the way the world changed or the way expectations change, then you will run into issues. So it's really important for you to build that framework first. Does that all make sense? You can nod.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so one thing to also keep in mind is strategy comes with strategic thinking. How do you become a strategic thinker? It's a learned process. It's not always innate to most people. Most people aren't born with strategic thinking. It's something you learn over time through experiences, through others, and through, you know, making mistakes, unfortunately. It's not something essentially that can be taught. And the reason I say this is because, you know, I'll give you the example of a person in our organization that's resigning today. You know, smart girl, has a technical background. She's the VP of forecasting in our company, and she decided to resign today, and her reason was she wants to grow and she wants to develop. Now, the problem with this person is she's not a strategic thinker. She's a technical person. She's an individual contributor to the organization. Yes, she's an important resource, but the fact that she's not a strategic thinker is what's holding her back from being a leader. If you cannot articulate what your goal is in the organization to help the benefit of the organization and advance your department, then unfortunately, that's what the executives see. And no matter how great you are at your specific function, if you don't have the capacity to think strategically, you'll quickly be recognized as someone who can only be an individual contributor. And when I say individual contributor, I'm referring to those people that we need an organization that does the heavy lifting when it comes to administrative duties or running reports or the technical know-how. They contribute to the big picture, but they don't essentially come up with the big picture, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying this to make anyone feel, oh, well, what's the point? If I'm not born with it, how do I even learn it? It can be learned. Anything can be learned. As long as you have that growth mindset, anything can be learned, right? I think most people can agree. You go to school, you learn, you start a new job, you learn. Like right now, I'm trying to learn another language. But if I keep telling myself, I'm going to learn a new language, but I don't actually try to figure out how I do that, well, then I'm pretty much dead in the water from the get-go. So strategic thinkers over time, they have to think about the real world processes of thinking, doing, and evaluating. So it's how do you go from awareness to action, right? I think most of us are stuck at awareness and we're not sure how to get to that action portion of it. So some components of strategic thinking is, do you understand the big picture, right? I mentioned before, the differences between certain goals is goals tends to be short-term and strategy tends to be long-term and the bigger picture. And when I say big, do we understand how our goals connect and interact with our framework? And with others in the organization or outside of the organization, in your company, in your business. Now, a lot of people who have businesses may only have a few people working for them. That's okay. You don't need to have a big corporation behind you. If you have 2 people, then that's your strategy team right there. How deep are you questioning your ways of operating and thinking? This one's really important because a lot of people get stuck in one way of thinking, and that's why they're not able to move forward. If you're stuck in thinking in one narrow path or vision, you're going to have a hard time coming up with your strategy. And when it comes to strategy, you have to think about the things you learned from the past and how you interpret those things to help you with your anticipation of your future. As I mentioned, we don't have crystal balls, but what we can do is use what we've learned in the past to help us decipher what can potentially happen in the future. And then how far in the future are you looking? Doesn't always make sense to look 20 years from now. Your long-term view can be 5 years. It can be 3 years. A short-term view is usually 1 to 2 years. Long-term can be 3 to 5 years. Going beyond 5 years tends to be a little bit more difficult because you really cannot decide what happens in 5 years. Even in a company like I work in, the farthest we forecast out financials is 5 years. Beyond that would be senseless because we really don't know what can happen in such a long period of time. And then we have to understand what shapes the alternative or future assumptions. You know, who would have known that COVID would have changed our world so much in a matter of months, where we're all working from home and we're all virtual, and things with the companies change, and things of how we look at life and how we have meetings would change so much. Most of the times you would all meet up somewhere. You wouldn't use a virtual platform to connect with people, but things have changed quite quickly over the past few years. So we have to look at all these different facets in order to become a strategic thinker. So this is more of a slide, kind of like quick bullets of components of strategic thinking, right? It's meant for you to see, you know, when you think of strategic thinking, you have to think first, what is your vision and goal? And remember what I said about that goal, it should be more of a long-term goal. So the first part that you should start with is, do I have a vision or do I have a mission? That's the first place you should start. Now, whether that be a personal vision for you, whether it be a vision for your career, or whether it be a financial or family related vision, it doesn't matter what category it falls under, as long as you have that vision in place. Analytical, you know, when it comes to strategic thinking, You also have to have somewhat of an analytical mindset, because a lot of times when you're making decisions, it's backed up by data, or it's backed up by financials. It's not just theory. So it's really important that you understand the analytical part of whatever your vision entails. Now, for me, I'm in an HR department of one. I'm pretty much it. So for me, the analytical part is understanding the company metrics, our tenure. How are we retaining our employees? What percentage of our employees are we retaining? What percentage of our employees are developing? What's the cost benefit analysis of certain programs? If I tell my boss, hey, I want to start doing leadership development for the company, well, he's going to ask me, well, what's the cost benefit analysis? So I can't just throw anything out there. I have to back up my wants with data. You have to look at systems from all points of view. Now, systems are not just technical. Your system can also be relationships. It can be partners. It can be technical. So those are 3 different types of systems that you have to look at. I talked about focusing on long-term forces, trends, and impacts. And you have to weigh decisions against criteria. Whenever you're making a decision, you have to think about what's that criteria behind those decisions. We can spend tons of time discussing a lot of these blocks, but as I'm limited to about an hour, I'm going fairly through each one of them. You think about things that across past, present, and future. Anticipating unwanted events and risks it tends to be hard to do, right? But you can anticipate risk. You can anticipate events. In my role, for example, I can anticipate which employees may leave. This particular person I have in mind, I knew she was probably going to leave 6 months ago. I had it in the back of my mind. This person is going to be a flight risk. I don't think they're planning on staying with this company much longer. And the reason I was able to anticipate it is based on conversations I've had with her, based on how I see her operating, based on things I've heard. So you can anticipate different wants and risk. You should allow for intelligent opportunism, meaning there's people out there that's smarter than all of us. We like to think that we're all smart, and we are, but there's always someone that's going to be smarter and that's going to have an answer for you, or maybe look at something in a different way. Use those opportunities. Don't feel I can't reach out to someone because I might look ridiculous to them. I ask the stupidest questions to my boss sometimes, and he just looks at me like, are you seriously asking me this right now? And I will say, yes, I really am asking you this question because I really want to understand. And he's not going to take it as, Arshina, you're really dumb. No, he's going to say, okay, well, now that you explained it this way as to why you want to know, and you didn't have this backup information, it makes sense as to why you're asking. So I'm going to go ask the person that I know is smarter than me to help me instead of trying to figure it out on my own. You should also question your assumption, your habits, and your conclusions, because a lot of times our own assumption, habits, and conclusions we make get in our own way. You all agree? We get in our own way sometimes. We're our own enemies. We are our own enemies.
There's one question that came up. Fatema's asking, is strategic thinking the same as strategic planning?
No, so they're different, right? Thinking is to having the thought and the theory. Planning is actually putting it in place. So that's where you have the difference. In order to have a strategic plan, you have to be a strategic thinker. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay.
It does, because I was thinking they might be the same, but yeah, you have to think the plan first before you put it into place.
Yeah, you have to be able to think that way before you can plan it, right?
Yes.
As I mentioned, I'm going to use the same example of this person that I mentioned, our VP that resigned today. Now, she came to me on Friday and to her boss, who's a chief financial officer, and said she's thinking of leaving the company, and she wants to know by Monday if there's a growth opportunity for her. Now, giving you that example, do you think she's a strategic thinker?
No, because she gave you a short period of time. Monday, she said she should have thought that out and give a lot more time, or look
She should have,
opportunities to grow, not
exactly.
put it on the company. Yeah, no.
Exactly. So when you're a strategic thinker, you're thinking about long-term, but you're coming up with the solutions. You're not asking for someone else to give it to you. So in her response, she said she wants to know what the growth opportunities are. Well, first, yes, you can't come to us on a Friday and tell us you're considering leaving Monday because you have an offer. What's our options? My response to her was, well, there is no option because we're not going to commit to anything in 2 days, right? Essentially. So at the end of the day, she did not come up with a plan. I already told you she wasn't a strategic thinker. If she was, she would have gone 6 months ago and talked to her boss and say, hey, this is what I have in mind. This is my plan for the future with the company. And here's how I think I can get there. And here's the commitment I need from you as an organization. And can we meet? Right? She did none of those things. And in fact, she wanted us to come up with the ideas for her. That is a perfect example of someone who's not a strategic thinker. Hopefully that's a good example that helps, but that's when she was being promoted to VP, the first thing that came to mind is this person's not a strategic thinker. And sometimes you ask yourself, why you even promoting someone, or why are you giving someone an opportunity, right? Think about your reason. Are you giving that person an opportunity because they show commitment to the company or to your cause or to your business? Are you giving them an opportunity because they've worked hard and they show they have long-term potential? That should be your answer. They're a high potential person that stand behind your cause and your company, and they've proven to be someone who's committed, right? It shouldn't be just because they're working hard or just because you need to fill some type of quota. There's a lot of questions you have to ask behind that. So strategic thinking is the basis, and then strategic planning is what comes after. Remember I mentioned earlier, you have to have the awareness in order to complete the action. Well, strategic thinking is that awareness, and strategic planning is that action. And in between that, you have strategic decision making, right? You have to be able to make decisions strategically in order to plan it out. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so here's some questions that can help you when you're formulating your strategy. Now, a lot of times people meet with me and they want me to tell them what their goals are, but what they need to understand is I'm not here to tell people what their goals are. They need to figure that out on their own, right? It's supposed to come from what their values are, what their plans are. I can help you probably formulate the words that you need. You can't put it in your own words, but at the end of the day, you have to know what your goal is. What is your goal and what is your purpose? It takes time, right? It takes time to come up with those things. You're probably not going to come off this call today and say, I know what my strategy is after listening to this call for an hour and a half. If you do, oh my God, I've done my job. No, but seriously, if it's going to be hard, it's going to take time. I've been trying to figure out my goals for the past 2 weeks for the year, and I still haven't come up with them because it's hard. It's hard to come up with goals. It's hard to think about yourself in that framework of short-term and long-term strategy and having to come up with them on your own. But look for feedback where you can. Figure out what your goal and purpose is. Ask yourself these questions, right? Even when the answer seems obvious, it doesn't mean it is, right? You may tell yourself, oh, this is my goal. I want to lose 20 pounds by, in December. Well, that's a great goal for your physicality, but is that an obvious goal? Is that really what you're trying to do? Or is there some underlying reason that you're trying to lose the 20 pounds? So think about those things as well. I mean, that's a very simple example. So some of these questions are things that you should ask yourself. What is your goal? What key problems, causes, and solution exists to address these strategies? What are the past, current, and possible future trends? And what are the key opportunities and threats that you face? What are the risks? There's risk involved in anything we do. Every time we wake up in the morning, we face certain risks each day. So you can't be afraid of the risk. You have to just pummel through, because the minute you start second guessing yourself, well, your strategy will start to have holes in them. Think about what it will take. I mean, motivation is part of one of the things that drive your strategy. I can't tell you how many times I say I'm going to learn to speak Korean, which if anyone knows me, and I know Sadaf knows this, I'm a big Korean fan. Like, I watch all the dramas, I do all of it. I practically should have been born in Korea at this point. But I can't tell you how many times I've tried to learn the Korean language, but when I stop and think about it, I'm like, well, I actually really haven't tried. Yeah, I've watched a few videos, I've done a few of these things, but I actually haven't really tried because I wasn't totally motivated. So motivation is also part of this whole process. And try to start small. Don't go, yes, you have to think about the big picture, but it doesn't mean you have to solve it all at once. Take them in pieces, come up with milestones, and hold yourself accountable, which we'll talk about later. Am I going too fast? Or are you guys doing okay?
No, you're good.
You're good.
All right. So what do you guys think are some characteristics of someone who thinks strategically? I'll let you guys give me some
I'm gonna
answers.
cheat. I just saw your thing that said open-minded.
Okay, good job.
Um, so characteristics of a thinker.
I kind of
Resourceful.
said some throughout.
For me, being resourceful.
Okay, that's a good one.
Mm,
I think also like being innovative, like come up with new ideas,
That's
something
good.
that is not already set in the previous strategic plan.
Mhm,
Not afraid of the risk.
that's a
Risk
great one.
taker. So risk taker.
Mhm. So what you'll find is everyone has a different idea of what a strategic thinker is, right? So there's not really one answer that everyone fits into this certain box. So there's many examples, and all the ones that you all gave are great examples. They manifest somewhere within mine, but of course, open-minded. As I mentioned earlier, you can't have a narrow view of what strategy is and what goals are. If you do, then you're going to pigeonhole yourself and you will set yourself up for failure. So you always have to have an open mind. You have to listen to others around you and use your resources available to you. I mentioned before also you have systems in place, whether that be a human capital, people system, or that be a technology. You have to be someone who can think analytically as well, because usually data drives our decision making and data drives our strategy. Diversity. Now, when you see diversity, you automatically think about ethnicity, right? Oh, this person's from this country, this person's from that, or this person's a male, this person's a female. But it's not just about diversity within our ethnicity and our gender. It's diversity in our age. It's diversity in our background. It's diversity in the colleges we went to. You know, accept that you're not going to have all the answers. Accept that someone who may below you in a subordinate position might have the answer. You can't be afraid of that. Think
And,
outside the box. That, you know, taking risk. Someone that mentioned that. That's part of thinking outside the box. And, you know, being resourceful is thinking outside the box. Thinking long term. As I mentioned, thinking about the big picture. Someone who's curious. You know, you have to be curious about things. If you stop being curious about how things work and how things affect each other, well, then you're also not being a strategic thinker. You're always having to think about and reelevate that mission of yours and that goal of yours. They change over time based on internal and external factors, right? So think about those things. Optimistic, right? If you're going to say, I'm going to set myself up for this goal and strategy, but the whole way, the whole time you're doing it, you're thinking negative. I'm never going to be able to do this. This person's going to think I'm crazy. Oh, it's too much work. Oh, I don't have enough finances. Do you think you're going to succeed? Probably not, right? So be optimistic. Wake up every day knowing that, you know, Allah has put you on this earth for a reason, whether it be a big reason or a small reason. You have something to do and something to contribute every day you wake up. Now, most of us, you know, if you're not a morning person like me, I don't want to wake up in the morning and get out there and go get my job done. But once I'm there, I'm all happy and optimistic and I'm ready to go. So think optimistic, even when things are tough. Now, Sadaf knows this. A lot of times I am not able to commit to working on MWO, especially this past 2020, because there's so many negative things happening in the hotel industry. I go to work every day and we lose $15 million a month, right? Do you think I feel good about going to work every day and earning a paycheck knowing that we're losing $15,000 a month? Sorry, $15 million a month? I don't, but I also have to be optimistic that we're going to get through it, that there's going to be a turnaround, that things will change. And inshallah, slowly but surely, things are starting to change slightly. You know, I have to wake up some days and know that I have to lay off 10 people that day. I'm not positive about that. I don't want to have to lay these people off. These are people I worked with. But at the end of the day, I have to be optimistic in the sense that, no, I'm not going to go in the room and have a huge smile on my face. Oh, today you're getting laid off. It's not in that sense of optimism. It's in the sense that knowing that there's a reason this is happening. And in the end of the day, it's for the business and for the long-term strategy of the business. And most of the time when you do lay people off, it's the people who are more of the challenging individuals and the people who aren't contributing as much. You're not going to get rid of your superstars, right? So think about optimistically. Think optimistically and challenge your assumptions. We all have assumptions. We all have biases, some of them unconscious, most of them unconscious, admittedly, some of them not, but they're called unconscious bias for a reason. We don't know we have them. So challenge your assumptions, challenge what you think about certain things. Look at it from other perspectives. And the reason I think self-awareness is so important, especially to women, regardless of your background or your religion, is we already work in a country where it's male dominated. You know, you look at equitable pay, you look at who's the leaders in companies and boards, it's dominated by men. So what as women do we have to do to make sure that we're self-aware of ourselves and what we're portraying out there to the males that may lead us is positive? You know, when you walk into a room, are you exuding that confidence or are you, slumping in the back of the room? You have to be self-aware. And all of this has to do with strategic thinking, because if you're not these things, you're going to have a hard time coming up with thinking strategically. And as I mentioned, these are not things that you learn. It's something you develop over time. I wasn't always confident. I wasn't always self-aware. Heck, I was the most pessimistic person walking into a job interview. The first thing that came into my head is like, oh gosh, these men are not going to hire me. I wear a hijab. They're going to look at me and be like, oh my God, what did she know? And I've had that experience where I did walk into a room and I saw how this male would react to me. And I thought to myself, oh, I'm not getting this job. Even before I even opened my mouth, I made an assumption about that person. One, I wasn't confident. Two, I wasn't self-aware of my capabilities, which I knew I had them. But it didn't happen overnight, right? It took time for me to develop those skills. The job I have now, I walked into the room, interviewed with two white males, older than me, of course, very dominant personalities, very direct personalities, but I didn't back down. I didn't let my hijab stand in my way or my background or my culture, or the fact that I'm a woman, the fact that I'm Muslim, the fact that I'm younger than the average person interviewing for the job. I didn't let those things stand in my way. All I focused on was my confidence and what I know I could do. So think about those things as well, because at the end of the day, those are the things that people are going to see, and they're going to trust you to know that you're a strategic thinker. You understand the long-term value of this organization, this business, this nonprofit, whatever it may be. And someone said about using your resources, learn from those resources, use them to your advantage. All right, I'm taking a sip of water. Do I still have everyone with me?
Yes.
Okay. For whatever reason, I hid the video and now I can't see any of you. So sorry if I asked. Trying to figure out how I can see people again. Oh, I found it. Okay, wait. All right. So we talked about, immediate versus long-term goals. These are different things that can limit our thinking when it comes to strategic thinking. You don't want to limit yourself. You don't want to put yourself in a box. If you are someone who's going to be responsible for thinking strategically and setting goals, don't overemphasize the immediate and forget about the long-term goals. You have to take into account different capacities of your business, different relationships in your business, how you're going to design and implement those challenges. But you also have to remember in the back of all of it, you're focusing on a long-term strategy using those different resources. You cannot focus on just the short-term goals. You have to be able to plan for your future, right? I think it was Rafia that mentioned that earlier on. One of the reasons she wants to learn about strategies, understanding how she can plan for the future. Is that you, Rafia? I think it was.
I do struggle with that, and I have to constantly remind myself every day, and my partner, to tell her to remind me about patience. I said, because I just, I know I have to do long-term planning, but sometimes it just feels like I'm so impatient.
The reason I think most people feel impatient with the task is because they don't necessarily always know how to get to that end point. They may know how to start, but they can't fill in the middle portion, right? And if you find yourself doing that, you need to pull yourself out of the environment that's giving you that block. What's going on? What other things are going on that's keeping you from doing that? Do you have other things on your mind? Do you have personal things on your mind? Like, what's standing in the way of you finishing that long-term strategy? Is it motivation? Is it something you're passionate about? If you don't have passion and value, then you're going to have a hard time coming up with that strategy. You started your business, you mentioned. If you're starting a business, that's your passion. There's a reason you started that business. So you have to invest the time in coming up with a long-term strategy. Some of us tend to zero in on.
I've been doing it. It's just that anxious. I think it's more anxious.
Okay.
Sometimes I try to say patience, but it's more like anxious, like, want to get there. So
Mhm.
investing the time to do this, I know I just love what I'm hearing. So thank you.
Okay, good. Well, invest the time, and there's nothing wrong with being anxious, right?
Yeah.
You can be, we're anxious. I get anxious every day. I'm like, oh my God, what if my kids do this? What if my kids do that? They're not bad kids, don't get me wrong. But every day you go to work. I mean, I'm anxious when I have to lay off 10 people. I'm not feeling good about it. There's nothing wrong with feeling anxious, but now you have to pull yourself apart from that anxiousness and say, what is my goal? What is my long-term strategy? Once you sit down with a clear head and a clear mind and focus on that strategy, it will come. But as I mentioned, it's not going to come right away. It's going to take time. Don't beat yourself up, which is another thing. Don't beat yourself up. You're standing in your own way because of that anxiousness. So you have to figure out a way to put that aside and focus on that strategy. And we'll get into some of that a little bit later. So you have all those small steps in mind that you mentioned. You have to figure out how you're going to align those small actions and those goals with the larger goal and strategy. If you are not able to align them, you have to ask yourself, these small goals that I've created for myself, do they really align with my big picture? Or are they just sub items that are nice to have, things that I can get to? Not every single goal that you have is going to be part of your strategy. If you end up trying to force everything into one strategy, it's going to lead to decisions that are not well connected or in conflict with what your actual goal and long-term strategy is. Okay, so ultimately, the reason you see this kind of balance scale is because strategic thinking really requires a balance that leads towards the long term, but you have to be mindful and respectful of the importance of implementing it effectively. And you have to work on short-term things to get to that long-term goal. And those short-term goals will help you implement your long-term strategy. So, we can get in our own way, our own thoughts in our head get in our way. And sometimes I'll see a job, if I'm applying for a job or I'm doing anything, I talk myself out of it. Do you ever find yourself talking yourself out of something you really want? Anyone? No, I'm the only one that does that.
I do it all the
No.
Like, wow, you guys are good.
do it like even for silly things. Like if I know I need something and I'm going to a store to get something, I'm constantly talking myself out of every little thing along the way. Like it's very difficult for me to take any
Yeah. And it's our own thinking that gets in the way, right? We have to learn to re-strategize our own minds in the way we think. And as I mentioned, confidence comes with that, right? If we can think about these different goals and strategies we have in mind and just focus on that and eliminate the self-doubt and that talking in your mind, just eliminate it as much as you can. You don't want those things standing in your way. So the things that limit strategic thinking, and Rafi, this might help you. Are you someone who's an anchor thinker, right? When you're faced with a choice, you may anchor on certain good outcomes that you think will occur that will help you make that decision, right? Sometimes people have a decision to make, and in their mind somehow they've convinced themselves that this is the only result that will be successful. I cannot tell you the thing I hate the most to hear from people when we're working on a project or a process, oh, it's always been done that way.
Mhm,
Really? But
mhm.
doesn't it mean that, yes, it's always been done that way? Doesn't mean there's not a better way to do it. So don't limit yourself in your thinking into there's only one way to do something, or this is the only possible outcome. There's many different ways to look at things. And when you do an exercise with a group of people and you ask them to come up with something, they all have different ideas. They don't all have the same idea. And a lot of times, anchoring is as a result of, I just have to do something. I'm just going to do something. So let me just go ahead and do this. And when you have that type of thinking, it leads you to limiting yourself. When you're working with people together, anchoring usually comes into play. And a lot of times it could be that person is just lazy. I hate to say it. That person is just lazy and they're not motivated. They don't want to have to take that extra step in thinking, oh, there's a better way to do it. Right? All right. So that's one thing that can limit us. I mentioned before that we all have biases. Your bias can limit your strategic thinking. You select information based on your own viewpoint and experiences, right? You don't always have the opportunity to make a decision making based on someone else's thinking. It's based on your own. We all carry biases that influence how we see the world, how we take information in. I mean, COVID is the best example. How many people were so scared to go out? Or you saw someone and they coughed and you're like, oh my God, they have COVID. I mean, we're making assumptions,
Mhm.
but our underlying values is and experiences is what shape how we interpret data and how we make conclusions. And a lot of times we're not conscious of those different layers of meaning and assumptions. So we have to become more aware of what our unconscious biases are. Those are roadblocks to coming up with strategies. So when you think about this ladder that we have here, it's a process of dealing with a complex world, right? You take actions based on your beliefs. We all do. You adopt your beliefs about the way the world exists around us. You draw your own conclusions based off of those beliefs, and you make assumptions based on those biases, right? You add the meanings, you select from what data you want to, and you make whatever observable data and experiences you want to based on what you know. But if we can eliminate the biases and reflect on all of these different areas, we'll be able to make better long-term strategies and goals. So things that you can try to avoid making unwise leaps in this ladder is make your own thinking clear and transparent. Sit down and actually talk it out. Don't just write it out, talk it out. Record yourself talking it out. If you sit down and record yourself on video, and you don't have to have any structure to it, you don't have to have any, perfect sentences or perfect vocabulary. It's just for you. You're the only one that's going to see it. Sit down and video yourself and say, this is what my strategy is. These are what my goals are. These are the things I believe. These are the things that I don't like. These are the things I think gets in my way. Just say it all out and then go back and listen to it. Not the same time, like a day or two later. A day or two later, go back and listen to it and start thinking to yourself what is actually true. And you'll start seeing that you're going to say, wow, I really thought that. I really think like that. When you're doing it in your head or you're writing it on paper, it doesn't always pop out. But when you watch yourself and your expressions and the way you make your face, we have a lot of body language in our face, not just in our language, right? The way we talk about things is also our body language. We communicate that way too. You'll be able to see a lot of things will come to the surface. We may say one thing, but mean another. When you write something down on paper, your body language is not coming out. So think about that. You're writing those action plans down, you're writing those goals down, but is your body language also consistent with your beliefs? Like, I'll give you an example. I had a senior vice president and a VP who were butting heads. They weren't getting along. And I finally said to them, let's just all get into a room and talk. We all got into a room. I let the two of them talk. And it all had to do with communication. At the end of the day, they just didn't communicate with each other, right? Once they got into the room and started talking, well then, wow, things started changing. But, you know, I asked the senior vice president, I need you to commit to X, Y, and Z. And he said the whole time, I am committed to it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But the whole time he fidgeted with his hands. He didn't always make eye contact. He moved around a lot. And in my mind, I'm thinking, your actions don't match what you're saying. Your words don't match those actions. He left the room. And I kept thinking, I hope this vice president didn't pick up on this, but I'm sure she did. And of course she did. She said, you know what, Arshina? Everything he said was great, but his actions didn't match his body language. And that made me feel that he wasn't serious. So the reason I tell you this is tape yourself. I mean, it's a great exercise to do. Just listen to yourself and watch yourself. Things will start bubbling to the surface. So as you're doing this video recording, make your own thinking as clear and transparent as possible. Don't hold back. As I mentioned, nobody else is really seeing this, right? It's just for you. So I'm not saying go out and say, you know, obviously all this negative stuff and all this foul language. Just make your assumptions and conclusions and your goals clear, no matter how lofty or how little they are. One thing you can also do for yourself is invite other people to test your knowledge and your assumptions and conclusions. When you're having a conversation about someone, ask them, you know, do you think I'm being biased and thinking that way? And they may want to know, well, why are you asking me that? But you need to check yourself sometimes. I do it all the time. And it doesn't have to be someone in a position of authority. It could be anyone. It could be your child. I'll tell my child something and say, wait, should I have really said that way? So you're thinking to yourself, what does any of this have to do with strategic thinking? Probably, but it all has to do with thinking long-term, right? All right. So what else can you do? Self-reflection. Think about your own strengths and your weaknesses related to strategic thinking. What are you good at? What stands in your way? Only you can tell us that. I can't tell you that. You have to figure it out. Someone can ask you probing questions and open-ended questions to help you come to that point, but only you will be able to really figure out what's standing in your way. And a weakness doesn't have to be a true weakness. A weakness can be, it's just, I need to learn something. I may not know it, I just need to learn it. Think about what adjustments you can make and how you might be able to improve your abilities and your habits. You know, obviously, you know, when we work on learning something, it doesn't come overnight. We have to work on it gradually and consistently. So the habits that are keeping you from reaching your goal, eliminate them. I first identify them and then eliminate them. And it's not going to happen overnight, right? They're a habit for a reason. It's you've developed that pattern. My habit is I tell myself every day, oh, I'm going to go read Quran for 20 minutes, and 3 days pass and I haven't done one thing. So what's standing in my way? Oh, I know, watching Korean dramas. I need to stop doing that. So try to eliminate some of those habits that stand in the way of your goals, right? And then ask yourself, how can I provide more strategic leadership? You know, if you were working with 5 people or 2 people or 20 people, what more can I do as a leader to make sure that my group also thinks strategically? It starts with you, but it doesn't end with you. Your whole team is on board with that strategy. You have to get alignment from all people. If you have a person on your team or in your group that doesn't align with your goal and strategy, they're going to help derail you. So that has to do with group reflection. How can you develop a shared thinking among your group? And I don't mean groupthink where you have everyone thinking exactly the same. I mean just coming up with a shared strategy. If you have a groupthink, then you're not going to end up having innovation. And how can you continue to nurture a culture that promotes strategic thinking? All right, that's strategic thinking. I promise you, the goals section is not as long. The reason the strategic section is so long is because I think that people have a harder time understanding strategy than goals. Do you agree?
Yes, love it.
You guys want to take a minute to ask me any questions before I jump into goals? Or do you want me to just keep going?
I had a question and I forgot. So I think like when you're working with a team,
Mhm.
right? I think what are some things that you can, sometimes you can't really pick, you can't decide, right? Like
Who's on your team?
who's on your team. It's not necessarily your decision.
Yeah.
Um, what are the things that we can do to kind of encourage or work around that, if that makes any sense? Like, I feel, I can do this personally and practice it personally, but what if everybody isn't on that same page,
Okay. So here's the thing. You have two issues, right? Either those people on your team are not the right members, or they just don't know how to do it, right? Some people want to be able to think strategically, but they don't know how to do it. But if they don't know how to do it, then it's your role as a leader to teach them to do it and encourage them to join sessions like these and provide them the resources to get there. But you also have to hold them accountable and they have to want to do it, right? So if I'm asked to join a board and I have these contacts that reach out to me about joining different boards and advisory committees, but guess what? I have no time. And I tell them that. I said, I don't have time. I would love to do it, but I know my commitment's not going to be there. I love what you stand for, but this is not the right time for me. That person might have a good intention, but is it the right time for them? So it's, are they the right person for the team? I know you said it's out of your control sometime. I think there's lots of things that are going to be out of control that we can't handle. So your next best thing is figuring out how to get them on that same wavelength. And the best way to do that is for you to set that precedent, right? You have to set it as a leader, assuming you're leading the team. And if you find that you're always hitting a brick wall or you're constantly going on in circles, then you unfortunately need to have a heart-to-heart conversation with that person and be frank with them. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of people who are doing nothing to help you succeed. And I don't take this the wrong way, leaders have no one to blame but themselves, right? Going back to the example of the person in my job who is now resigning, part of the problem is not just her, it's the leader. He's also a bad communicator. He's a strategic thinker, but he just doesn't know how to communicate to this other person. So as a good leader, you have to figure out ways to communicate and give constructive feedback to those people who aren't aligning with your vision. I inherited the people that work for me at my job. I didn't hire these people. So when you inherit people, that's out of your control. But it's my job to develop that person to get them to where I need them to. And if I hit a wall where I'm finding that they're not excelling in certain areas, I'm just going to ask them, what's going on? Why aren't you getting this? Or is there something I can do to help you understand better? Or do you need more resources? And set yourself up with a timeline. Don't just tell them and forget it. Tell them and follow up. Check in every X amount of weeks. Make it one of their own goals, make it their goal to understand what strategic thinking is and to come up with a framework. Does that help?
Then I think it goes back to that confidence thing that you said in the beginning. Like, we need to have like those three things, right? You said confidence, communication,
self-awareness, and communication.
I think those are the things that, like if you're like a people pleaser, it's difficult. But I think you're right. Like you have to just have confidence in your thinking and your abilities and bringing people
I
along.
do. If people will see that, and I hate to say, some people take advantage of that, right? People, it happens regardless of what type of organization, or it happens in your family, it happens at work, it happens in a nonprofit, it happens everywhere. People see, oh, she's not really serious about X, Y, and Z, so I'm just going to go and do this and this, and I'll get away with it. Well, guess what? They're feeding off of you. So until you step up as a person, I'm not saying this you personally thought of course, until someone steps up as a leader and says, this is what I expect, this is what I want to see from my team, and I need to know who's going to be on board and get me to that point, they're not going to really say, oh, is this person really serious? You have to gain the confidence, and the only way you gain the confidence is by first be knowledgeable about what your goal and strategy is. Because if you don't know your own goal and strategy, how do you sell it to someone else? Right? If I walk into the room tomorrow and tell my boss, hey, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Let's say, for example, the job before this job, I've never wanted to be a VP. And the reason is because I know how much work comes with it. I'm not saying I'm lazy, but I also don't want to work full time, right? I'm lucky that I have a job that I can work, 25 hours a week, and I'm still paid well and compensated for my knowledge. And I'm appreciative of that. But every time he says to me, well, don't you want to be a VP? No, I'm fine where I am. I like going home at 3 o'clock and seeing my kids and spending time with them.
Mm.
But so you have to figure out, are you confident enough to say those things, regardless of who it is? He might say to me, Arshina, well, I'm promoting you to a VP, you need to become full-time. And then I have to make the decision, well, do I really want to go to VP and add all this stress to my life? I mean, not that I'm going to add any more stress than I already have. Or is my value of staying home with my kids whenever I can more important? And that might change a year from now. I might say, oh, my kids are old enough, I can go work full-time. But you have to have the confidence to speak up to that person. Our CEO, not easy to deal with, very direct, very abrupt, can come off a little rude at times. And during COVID, I had a hard time convincing him that people should not have to come to work during a damn pandemic. But guess what? Sitting in a room with him and others, no one speaks up. You have to be the person that stands to your gut and what you think is right, and that person will respect you more for it.
Mhm.
So confidence comes with time, with practice. Practice in the mirror, practice those conversations by yourself and with someone. And then ask that person for feedback. Am I coming off harsh or rude? Am I coming off too strong? And sometimes you do have to come off strong, right? So
I'm gonna tell. I want to just say something. What
Mhm.
I do is you can find like a somebody that you're really close with, like an accountability partner. And a
Mhm.
lot of things that I do is I script things and I go over it with my accountability partner. So, for example, Sadaf, if you know like there's something that you want to say, find that super close person to you. That person on your power team. It could be Arshina, it could be your husband, it could be whoever, and you just script it out, say it, and then you're like, well, how did that sound? And then
Mhm.
it gets you verbally saying it, so you're like, oh, I actually said it. You're not saying it to the person, but you actually verbalized it. Well, because I struggled, because I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I struggled with tone coming from up north to the south. And so my husband would say that I came across rude, or he would tell me, and I'm like, but I wasn't being rude. That's just how I talk. And a lot of times I'll be speaking to people and they might think that I'm nasty or rude, but it's my tone. So then I was like, oh, okay. So now I script things. I have an accountability partner and I say it and I type it out. I read it and I say it. So I would tell you any day I would be there to be your accountability partner, or just that strategy has worked millions across my entire all of my businesses, my work, my everything. So
So
it's
you
just a
actually,
little tool.
no, and that's actually a tool I will talk about. So thank you for
Oh,
that.
sorry about
No,
that.
you're fine. You're fine. So I know
Okay.
we're running out of time soon, so I'm going to just keep going.
Okay.
So what I want you all to do, and you've probably maybe done this exercise before, is cross your hands like you normally cross it, like how you normally cross your hands.
Mhm.
Okay. So now try and cross it the opposite way. Like it's not easy, right? Some of us are like, oh yeah, this is easy, but it's trying to figure out where your hands go when it's uncomfortable. It feels awkward. It doesn't feel natural. So part of coming up with your own self-awareness and coming up with that strategy is it's not comfortable. It's not easy. It's not natural. Yes, some of us, it comes natural too, right? But you have to remember it's not easy. And that's the whole point of understanding. You just cross your hands the opposite way, you feel awkward. Imagine what it's like to have to come up with a whole strategy and goal, right? All right, let me go to the next slide here. All right, so once you've come up with that strategy, which we spent a lot of time talking about, you have to figure out what is your goal setting gonna look like. That's the planning part of it, right? So a goal is an objective for some type of change or improvement. Your goal is something that is going to guide you and motivate you. And it's over a specified period of time. It's not something like over a day. It's usually short-term goals, 1 year to 2 years, long-term goals, 3 years to 5 years. Now, what gets in your way of goal setting? Why don't they always work out? I mentioned I scheduled, in my mind, I had this goal to learn another language, Korean, but why can't I do it? Is it value? Is it really of value to me? Yes, it would be great to learn another language, but is it really going to bring value? Or is it just something fun? I just don't want to read subtitles, really. Is it specific? When you set a goal for yourself, it has to be specific. I think Rafia mentioned SMART, which we'll talk about also. If you're not setting a goal that's specific and it's very broad, well, you're not going to be able to hit that goal. So if you say to yourself, I want to lose weight, do you think that's specific?
No.
No. I want to lose 15 pounds in 6 months. Does that sound more specific? Yeah. And is your goal supported? So if you're working with a group of people and not everyone agrees with your goals, how are you going to achieve your goals if the people don't agree with you? You have to be able to align all 3 of these things to keep yourself from failing, to keep yourself from being overwhelmed. When you say if your goal is valued, your mind and your heart has to be committed. If your heart's not committed to that goal, even though your mind is telling you this is the right thing to do, there's a disconnect. So you have to be able to align those, right? Your goal has to be supported. You have to have cheerleaders or a coach or a mentor or a partner, someone that's going to believe in that goal and support you along the way. It could be, a friend. It could be a coworker. It could be your boss. Right? If I had a goal, I have a goal of developing coaching within the organization, which we do, but I want to be able to do the leadership coaching sessions, which costs money. And if I'm going to tell my boss, oh, I need $10,000 to go to this class, he's going to say, why? He has to be able to support it before he can give me the money. If he says no, or it's a waste of your time, there's no value there, well, then I'm not going to do it. But if he says there's a lot of value there and I show him what value it's going to bring, and I set up a specific reason why I'm going to this coaching session, he's going to support it if I believe in it. And of course, as long as there's money there. So how do you overcome some of these barriers? You have to be able to identify your values and see how they impact your goals. So understanding your value and goals is part of the big picture, right? We talked about SMART goals, which I'm going to ask Rathia to tell me what those are when I'm ready. And you have to develop that action plan with all these different frameworks in mind. So these steps are really important. Okay, so identifying your values. So what are the underlying principles you believe in and that's important to you? Take time to reflect on these. Why is it important to you? What is your passion? What motivates you? Hey, I'm motivated by a paycheck. We all are motivated by a paycheck, but it's more than just that, right? I'm motivated by my passion for X, Y, and Z. I mentioned before, I'm really into sustainability. I don't work for a company that's all about sustainability. Working for hotels, we waste a lot. But if I was to ever go work for another company, I'm going to try to align those visions of what's important to me with that company. I'm not going to go work for an oil company. I'm not going to go work for a bank because of RIBA. So you have to align those visions with your values. So identify, prioritize, and align those goals. So this is just a quick example, right? So what's important to you? Your family time, your career, finances, your health. I can't believe I put medium for health, but I guess I did. I guess I must have been really healthy. Communication, fame. Well, these are examples, right? So what is your goal? Yes, spending more time with your family. It's not specific. I'm just giving you quick examples. My career, I want to be promoted. At some point, yes. Finances, I want to be able to make X amount. Now, these are just general, but these are just examples, right? when you start setting those goals, you're going to start going into what's SMART goals, right? All right. Oh, I was going to ask, yeah, or anyone else who wants to interject about what SMART goals are. What does it mean?
If anyone wants to, more than I can, but if anybody wants to, I'll open the floor. Okay, I can. So I just want to point out that Arshina was being very strategic by picking me, and she mentioned it earlier. So I want you girls to pay attention to how strategic thinkers speak, how they think, how they address situations. So if you all notice, she gave me a second. She didn't want to throw me and catch me off guard, so she gave me a second. She says, which I'm going to ask her to talk about in a second. So thank you for being a strategic thinker there.
Mhm.
And so strategic, SMART goals, right? So it's pretty much the S stands for something, the M, the A, and the R, and the T. So we want to be specific, which would be the S, which would make the goal, like Arshina said, specific, narrow it down. So if you're going to do a short-term goal or a long-term goal, it's specific to what you want to do. Then you have a measurable. So you would put it on a time frame. So you would give it like a time frame, whether it be the 15th of the month, whether it be a month, 2 months, 3 months, but measurable realistically. So you have specific, measurable. The A is going to be attainable. So you want to be smart about it. Like, I'm not going to say that I'm going to lose 80 pounds in, 2 months or a month, because it's not really something that might not be attainable per se for me. So you want to make it relevant, where your goals should align exactly with what your values are, not some other organization or some other person, relevant to you and to your organization. And then again, coming back to the time-based, never leave anything open. Leave it, giving it a time where, okay, it's going to be a month, it's going to be 5 days, 3 days, a day, whatever your time frame is. So setting your goal specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. That's pretty much what a SMART goal is.
Mhm. See, Rafael, you can teach this class. So yeah, she's correct. I mean, realistic and relevant is interchangeable at times, because is it realistic to what you're really doing? Using the same example that she mentioned, it's, if you had a goal that was too broad, it would say, I would want to lose weight. But here's what a SMART goal looks like. And she alluded to it as well. I want to lose 10 pounds over the next 6 months. I will purchase a gym membership how are you going to get there? How are you going to attain that goal, right? I'm going to purchase a gym membership at the local Plan Fitness. I will go there 2 times a week in the first month, work my way up to 3 times a week in the second month. And by the third month, I will aim for 3 to 5 times a week.
Breaking it down.
You're breaking it down into pieces. Each time I go to the gym, I will spend at least 30 minutes, but no more than an hour. Be realistic. I'm not going to say I'm going to be at the gym for 3 hours, 3 days a week. And what areas are you trying to target? I'm trying to target my abs, my thighs, and my arms. Wow, I have a lot to do apparently. And then I will determine which exercise works best for me through trial and error to target those areas in the first month. Now that last part is revisiting that goal, right? I mentioned earlier that goals can change over time. If I'm doing an exercise for 3 months and I haven't lost 1 pound, well, guess what? That's not working. So I need to reevaluate. Make sense? All right. Now, creating an action plan. Using that same example, right? And by the way, I'm not 150 pounds. Create your own action plan, right? And I have this template. I can email it out to you. But what is your goal? That's your objective, right? Where are you now? You have to understand your current state in order to get to a future state. If you can't realistically tell yourself, honestly, where you are now, then you're fooling yourself, right? That goes back to the whole self-awareness. If I fib and say, oh, I'm 130 pounds to my trainer, and I want to be 120 pounds, well, that's not possible because I'm not 130 pounds. So set that current state, understand where you are, and be honest about it. Be honest about it. There's nothing wrong with not being where you intend to be. And obviously, this is a very general goal. This has nothing to do with the business end. I'm just trying to give you an example that's easily related to by most people. And then think to yourself, what is my action plan going to be? How will I get there? What is my time frame? Track your progress. That's in anything. If you know you set yourself up as a goal of coming up with the mission statement of my company, what's my current statement? My current state. Well, I don't have a mission statement. How am I going to come up with the mission statement? I'm going to sit down and write down all the values that I believe in, the values that are important to my company, and how I'm going to align those values with my strategy. What's your time frame? I want to come up with my mission statement by February, sorry, we're in February now, by April of 2021, April 15th of 2021.
Mhm.
Every 2 weeks, I'm going to revisit my missions. A mission statement isn't written overnight, by the way. It takes time and it takes a lot of resources and it takes feedback from other people to come up with that mission statement. So I'm going to use these different resources to help me come up with my mission statement, to check my mission statement, to provide feedback and list what those resources are and gain their commitment. Right? Don't write a resource down if you know it's not going to be an actual resource. So if, Salwa said to Sadaf, hey, Sadaf, I'd like for you to be my accountability partner. And Sadaf is thinking, oh gosh, I don't have time for this. And Sadaf says, okay, I'll do it. And then Salwa checks in with her in 2 weeks and Sadaf says, I'm really busy. I don't have time. I'll get back with you in 2 days. And 3 days later, Salwa reaches out and Sadaf is like, oh, I have to go to this event. I won't be able to. Well, Salwa, you have to say to yourself, maybe I need to find another resource. This one's not working out.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid of hurting people's feelings. You may be thinking you're hurting someone's feelings, but you may not. As long as you're kind, of course, be a kind person. Tell people, hey, actually, I'm not. I get so many solicitations every day. Hey, we have this product that we think will help your HR department. No, thanks, no interest. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not interested. That's all you need to hear. What's your progress? Set up a timeline and set up milestones for each goal. And what are your challenges? Well, Sadaf is not helping me, so that's a challenge. She's sending me back. Sadaf, I hope you don't mind me using you in Salwa. What are those challenges that you're going to face? Is there someone on your team that's your challenge? Well, if that's the person that's a challenge, how are you going to work on that challenge? And then what are the results of your goal? So at the end of that timeline that you set yourself for, did you reach that goal? If not, why not? Why wasn't it achieved? Do you need to make them more realistic? Did you not challenge yourself? Did you not stick to the timeline? Why didn't you stick to the timeline? As you can see, this takes work. It takes work and commitment and time. And then once you do achieve that goal, let's say you met that goal. Oh, I lost 30 pounds by the end of 6 months. I know that's not realistic, but let's say 15 pounds. What is your stretch goal? Your stretch goal is how do I maintain it? Or what do I need to do to update that goal?
Mhm.
I've met that goal, but now I have to keep that weight off, right? How do I do that? So that's an example of your stretch goal. So this is like what the template looks like. It's the same as this. So I'll email that out. It's very basic, right? You can find any of this stuff online. You can just type in goal setting, action plan, and you'll come up with so many different templates. But really all you need is these few things.
Yeah, and like you said, just when you have your goal, get those action items, like write them down because sometimes they might be little as to just call the bank. It might be, there's like a bunch of action items, little action items that you have to do in the interim. So you
Mhm.
might know, like, okay, I need to do this, but in order to get to this, I have to do these 3 tiny little things. One is ask somebody to watch my kid. 2 is call the bank. And 3 is look for the website of XYZ. But if you don't do those 3 tiny little things, you're not going to move over to do what you have to do. So beware, and look at your action items. Like don't forget about those little tiny things that you have to do in the interim.
Mhm.
Sometimes people magically think they're going to get done, but they won't. Like you have to do it.
Yeah. And those are the tasks that are associated with your goals and your action plan. And you can have a section that you write the task down. And if
Yep.
you're like me who loves to check task off, then create a task
Yeah,
list.
I love task.
Yeah. It makes you feel accomplished when you check that thing off. And if that check mark is not there for a week, well, then what's holding you back? It might be out of your control. You know, COVID-19, I can't go get that leadership coaching class. So look at those things as well. And then finally, hold yourself accountable. How do you, first of all, as I mentioned, it all starts with you, right? Nothing's going to happen if you don't start the process. So you can't ask Nortel or Michelle or Fatima to, you know, hold you accountable when you haven't even started it. And it has to be someone that's a trusted partner, not just anyone, someone you trust, someone who you value their opinion. They don't have to have knowledge about what you're doing, right? At the end of the day, it's not rocket science. It's just coming up with a plan that might be rocket science. So that person has to be someone you trust. You have to be someone who's motivational and positive. If it's a negative person, that's not who you want as your accountable partner.
Mhm.
They have to, but they also have to be able to, to give you constructive feedback. They don't have to be motivational and positive and always be on your same wavelength and say, oh, everything you say is, yeah, that's great, that's great, that's great. And we all have people like that in our lives who don't want to tell us the negative stuff, the people pleaser. But if we are all surrounded by people pleasers, well, we're never going to become self-aware, because sometimes we need those people pleasers to call us out. You know, you need friends like that that will call you out when things are not looking right. But you also want them to be positive. You don't want them to say, oh, Sadaf, you're never going to achieve this goal. What are you doing? Oh, Sadaf, let's go hang out instead of working on this goal. Someone neutral, someone who doesn't have an ulterior motive in mind. You know, someone who's going to be able to look at you from a objective manner and be able to tell you, you know, from my point of view, this is what I see. I'm not going to ask my
Non-judgmental.
subordinate. What's that?
Like non-judgmental, like you
Yes.
can tell that they're non-judgmental. Yeah.
Mhm. I'm not going to ask my subordinate about a goal, because she might say to me, well, I have to do all this work when it comes to this goal. So no, I don't like this goal. So someone that's neutral, and then someone who's going to keep your stuff private, assuming it's something that's private. You know, you don't want someone knowing, hey, this is what this person is working on, and this is what she told me, and this is what they are trying to do. What do you think about that? It doesn't matter what other people think. If you chose someone as your accountability partner, it should know what they think. But it doesn't also mean that they have all the answers. But they're going to help you, hold you accountable. You have to give them a plan of what that looks like. So if Salaf commits to being Salwa's accountability partner, Salwa is going to come up with a plan on, can we talk every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks at this time? And can you, every time you have a meeting with your accountability partner, tell them what you're thinking. What's your motivation for the call? What do you hope to get out of this call? Tell me how I can help you. Right?
Absolutely.
Let's get it. Let's all go out there and write our action plans and our strategies. Start
Mhm.
small. Don't go out there and write your whole mission statement. It's not going to happen. So start small. Start with the things that you know you can control, and then figure out what's standing in your way. Be persistent and consistent. Don't, you know, you're going to have ups and downs. It's normal. You're going to be all passionate about working on your company and your goals. And then 3 days later, you're just not feeling it. That's okay. That's normal. It's part of it. We're not always on at all times, right? You have those days where you just don't even want to see a person. You just want to lay down all day. That's part of the process. That's okay. We need a mental break. Don't be afraid to fail. Everybody has a different definition of what success is and what failure is. Your definition of success might be something that you're thinking, oh, Arshina's going to think that's nothing. It's not my definition. It's your definition. Success to you might be starting a family by the time you're 25 and staying home and taking care of your family. That's your success. That's great. Success to me might be starting a family by X age and also working and also being able to provide for my family. That doesn't mean your definition is wrong. And we all fail. I've messed up a lot in my career. I mean, it's not easy to say or to admit that you failed at something, because you're kind of shedding that spotlight on yourself, right? You're not putting that spotlight on yourself. I failed. So what, right? As long as you learn from that failure, that's key.
Mhm.
But if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, then you haven't learned from that failure. And balance is equality. I mean, you're going to fall back into old habits. We all do, right? But keep yourself accountable as well as you can. And having balance means giving the appropriate amount of time to each goal, not an equal amount of time, but an appropriate amount of time. If we try to say we want a balanced life, balance for everyone is also different. Right? I mentioned before, I'm okay with not being a VP right now because balance in my family life outweighs my career. But that might change later. All right, so come up with what's the balance that's important to all areas of your life. All right on time. I'm done at 8:30 exact. I didn't leave any time for questions.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
Thank you so much, Arshina.
Okay.
I think honestly, I took a lot of notes, but everybody should have registered for this event somehow, but I did take a note of who's here. If you registered, we have your email addresses. If you didn't registered and you're here, just put your email address in the chat, and what we'll do is email the template that Arshina you showed. We'll email that to everybody, inshallah.
Okay.
And as far as accountability partners go, if you see someone else on here today that you want to connect with, just reach out to them. If you're looking for, an accountability partner, it's always nice to have somebody that heard all of this and knows what you're expecting. So
I swear for accountability partners. I do not go without an accountability partner. So I will be the biggest advocate for that and encourage all of you ladies to reach out to someone or anyone, whether it's in this group or within your circle, because believe it or not, successful women and successful people love to pull other people up. So unless they're completely swamped and cannot do it, they wouldn't say no. Like, I just know that they love to see other women succeed. So just based on the women that are already in here, I know that for a fact. So mashallah, I wanted to say that. Don't hesitate to reach out, because you never know, like, someone will be willing to do it.
Thank you so much. I actually, before everybody, we let everyone go, Salwa is gonna just give you a little bit of an idea of what we have coming up in the next couple months, what we have in store, inshallah. Salwa, take it away.
Okay, first of all, Jazakallah khair, Archdean. That was a beautiful, amazing, wonderful training. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And we would love to hear your opinions on this event. So I'll drop the link to a feedback form in the chat, and we would really appreciate it if you can all take the time to fill it out. And I also want to talk about some of our upcoming trainings so that you can get a better understanding of what types of events will be included in the Leadership Toolbox. So the first big workshop we'll have is a 4-part series on finding grants and grant writing. And that will take place Tuesdays at 7 p.m. from March 2nd to March 23rd. And by the end of the workshop series, all of you will have like a material proposal that you can either submit or expand upon as needed, depending on what the grant is for. And then another workshop will focus on anti-racism and allyship. And that would be with Muslim Arc on a Sunday in either March or April. And then the last big workshop I want to highlight right now is a series about marriage and nikah. So this would be a 3-part series organized by a gender equity coordinator with Amani. So the first workshop would talk about marriage. So for example, what you need to know about nikah contracts and how they can protect you, as well as talking about premarital therapy. And then the second workshop would focus on healthy relationships and abuse. And then the final workshop will talk about divorce, and there will be a female Muslim lawyer present to give advice on how Muslim women going through a divorce can be advocated for. And the dates of this series have yet to be decided, but they will likely occur on Sundays within the next few months. So we have a lot planned, and we hope that inshallah these trainings can help empower all of you as community leaders and uplift the Muslim women of the community. So thank you once again for joining. And I'm going to drop the sign up form for the Muslim Women's Action Network in the chat so that we can all benefit, inshallah. There you go.
You know, we actually wanted to, thank you so much, Sola. So we wanted to create a network of support. We connect with everybody on a very irregular basis. So we wanted to, either through Facebook, a platform that works with everybody, either Facebook or Slack or something, just have all of you there so we can offer advice, just share resources, have little just random trainings going on now and then. Like someone says, oh, I have no idea how to sync my Google Calendar to whatever. And we can just hop on and just start a video and just show everyone how to do little things, right? So inshallah, the idea is just to really create a community of care for the women that are leading in our Florida, inshallah. So those two links that you have here, please, please, please make sure you click that first link and let us know how you thought, you know, what you thought of this and what else you want to learn about, inshallah. So thank you. I think we are done. We'll end with Wal Asr. We are having a sisterhood squad meeting immediately following this. So a few people just showed up for that meeting. If you want to help with our sisterhood events, you're welcome to stay on afterward. If not, we're just going to end with Wal Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
I appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Jazakumullah
All
khair.
right.
Breen, you are psychedelic right now. Yeah, you are.
I was
With your
wondering if it was just
screen.
me or are you actually getting to see that psychedelic effect? I don't know what is
Well,
going
maybe log in and log back out. It's something with your background setting or something.
Stop your video and then start it again. See what happens.
Yeah, let me try that. I was thinking it's just me. Okay, let me just start. Should I log out and then I think I'll try to log out
Or maybe
first.
stop the video and start it again.
Okay, let me try that first. Okay.
I was like, dude, that can. Oh, it worked.
It worked. Okay. Sure. Interesting. Well, did you like that effect? I thought you actually were enjoying it. So
We had a rave party going on.
Like, does she know this is happening?
no, I could see it. I was like, I don't know what is going on with my phone. I thought my battery's dying, so I put a charger on. Well, this was easy. Stopping the video.
Okay. Gosh, it's nice to see you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. And thank you for everybody who's staying on. I know y'all been on since 7 o'clock, but so welcome to our sisterhood and what are we calling it? Community building meeting. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go on my phone and join the other real quick. Just nobody's on the other link. I'm supposed to be on another link. Hold on 1 second.
I love your screen, Umbreen. Your computer screen, your laptop screen. I mean, your desktop screen.
My
The desktop be like right there, like your computer,
oh,
like your
okay.
monitor.
Oh,
Like
really?
from your desktop. It's so nice.
Oh, thank you. It's like I had to put my charger on, so I had to angle it in a way that it's close to the charger.
So because I use my laptop for work for everything, and I'm just beginning to think that I need a bigger screen.
I hope.
So I can sit more comfortably and not be like bending into the laptop. Sometimes I feel like I'm bending into the laptop. So I think if I
Yeah.
have a nice big monitor, I don't have to do that.
Yeah. Do you have that thing that like one of those pads things that you put on your laptop with the laptop pad thing?
Mm-mm. Well, I have a desk and everything, but I just feel like sometimes I'm bending in, like I'm sitting on my chair and I'm constantly bending in.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
Come again. Sorry, I'm back. Yeah, we were supposed to meet on meet, so nobody's there, so we're good. We're here. So, welcome to our sisterhood and community building meeting. Kimberly, Miriam, Rehab, you all have been on every other time, but Breen is joining us. Nortel, do you all know each other? No, not really. Some new faces. So why don't we just real quick go around and just say well, we can see your name, but just tell everybody your name, and maybe you can tell everyone what did you eat for dinner if you had dinner. And I'll go first. My name is Sadaf. I actually ate shrimp biryani at around 4 o'clock. I brought it with me.
jealous. Why did you have to say that? Oh my God. I'm so jealous right now.
Honest, but I didn't have dinner. That was like a dunch situation.
I'll see. Okay.
The next person I see on my screen is Umbreen.
Okay, assalamualaikum everybody. I'm Breen here. I haven't met a few of you. I think Rafia, we were just talking, but just introducing myself. I see Kimberly, and there's a few names I know. But what did I have? So I had a late lunch, same thing as, and surprisingly, I had biryani, but it was goat, not shrimp.
I'm so jealous right now.
So
Umbreen is our board. For those who don't know, Umbreen is our board secretary.
Yeah.
Thing.
Thank you, Sadaf.
Okay, fine. You can say what position you are in MWO if you have a specific position that you hold. Who's next? I see Nortel.
Assalamualaikum.
I'm sorry.
Me? Can
Salam.
you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Nortel. What did I have for dinner? I'm still on the job, by the way. I had chicken stir fry for dinner, and yeah, I'm just sitting here listening to what was a really great topic just now. Sadaf, I'm glad that you hosted this. I learned quite a bit. I mean, I can identify some things in myself, but some great points. But yep, this is Nortel, still on the job during tax season.
Gosh. Thank you for making it. I know you have a lot on your plate with work.
Yeah, but the good thing is I have a dual monitor so I can listen and work at the same time.
I need one of those.
What I'm saying, I need to step up my monitor game.
Rafia, why don't you go next?
I had chicken noodle soup I made for the kids, and I had some of that, and I'm excited to be here. I am with the MWO part of the Boss Women series and the committee, and so excited to be here this year.
Yay, thank you. Rehab.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Rehab. I had salmon and lentils. That's my comfort food. And I'm a part of MWO leading the convert care. And that session, the previous session was awesome. I definitely need an accountability partner. Yes, Sadaf, I think I'm gonna pick you.
You know what? I love that her example was like, I need to lose weight. How you have to kind of have a plan.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about work, it's personal too. You can use it for anything.
Right. Thinking through things. I guess that's what is something that I really need to look into, like really thinking at every step and thinking through it, right? So yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Thank you for making me do it.
I can make people do things. You know how I am. We have Kimberly next.
Assalamualaikum. Sorry, I'm driving.
I feel like you're always driving, Kimberly.
Huh?
You're always driving.
I am, because the meetings are on the nights I have to go pick my daughter up from gymnastics. So
Oh, that.
don't do that. And so I'm just driving. But the last session, I will say, was excellent. It brought a lot of clarity for me. So I was very happy with that session. But as far as my dinner, which I have not eaten yet because I was still cooking and writing notes while listening to the last session, I made some
Oh, you cut off. Shrimp something.
Hey, shrimp.
We lost you. Okay, we'll go to Mariam. Mariam's back. Oh wait, Kimberly's back. Kimberly, you disappeared. You were saying shrimp something.
Now I made some basmati rice
Ooh.
with string beans and this Persian chicken, what has like cranberries and raisins. And I added the raisins, but I've made it before.
That sounds good. Everybody's stuff sounds so good.
Oh, okay. Well, she'll finish. Mariam.
Okay, I'll make you feel better, Rafi. I had a hot dog.
Thank you.
I am Mariam. I've been doing PA for the past 2 years, still working on it. And today I was working on some theoretical framework of cultural competency. So it was a lot of thinking and thinking and thinking, and I had no time to make any dinner. So I just
I
ran
missed the
before
first
this
part. You said I'm
meeting.
working on my, I missed that. It
PhD.
cut out.
I'm
Okay,
working on PhD.
mashallah, mashallah.
So I ran to the kitchen and I heated up a hot dog quickly and ate it before sitting down for this meeting. Alhamdulillah.
So good. Honestly, the hot dogs work. I'm good with hot dogs. I feel like I need to just bring some hot dogs in here. And that way, if I ever stay late, I'll have some food. So Sabrina messaged me saying that she's either running. Yeah, she'll jump on in a minute.
You tell her we're on the Zoom.
Yeah, I gave her the link for the Zoom. She says she has it. Okay, so thank you all for coming back for this meeting. And I'm gonna share my screen. And so those of you who missed our previous meetings, you can see what we've been up to. Oh, let me stop recording.